has condemned the terrorist crime against the Jordanian pilot and sent a letter calling on the Jordanian government to coordinate in fighting terrorism. Al-Muallem, we don't allow anyone to violate our national sovereignty, and we don't need land forces to interfere and fight ISIS. McKay, we emphasize our support to Syria and we call on the international community to exert efforts to fight terrorism and solve the crisis in Syria peacefully. And Erdogan's regime continues tightening its police grip, arresting again 21 policemen to cover up its corruption crimes. Good afternoon. President Bashar al-Assad received today a letter from his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko expressing his country's support to Syria in combating terrorism. President Lukashenko asserted his confidence in the Syrian people's ability to overcome the crisis. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Expatriates Affairs Walid Al-Muallem held a joint press conference with the Foreign Minister of Belarus, Vladimir McKay. Al-Muallem said that he had constructive talks with McKay, whose visit at this time highlights his country's support to Syria under the leadership of President Bashar al-Assad. Al-Muallem added that Syria condemned the terrorist crime against the Jordanian pilot Maaz al-Kasasiba and extended an invitation to the Jordanian government to coordinate in fighting terrorism despite prior knowledge that Jordan doesn't have an independent decision to take in this regard. Al-Muallem pointed out that Jordan has a part in sending terrorists across its border to Syria after training them in camps on its territories under the supervision of the United States, and that it is fighting ISIS for its own reasons, whereas it doesn't fight al-Nusra on its borders. The foreign minister stressed that we in Syria don't allow anybody to entrench on our national sovereignty, and we don't need land forces to interfere and fight ISIS, as the Syrian Arab army is doing this task with full valor. Al-Muallem added that Syria's priority is fighting terrorism and finalizing national reconciliations as a means to reach the political solution. The foreign minister underlined that Syria is responding to all initiatives based on the priority of drying up the sources of terrorism and asserts the Syrian dialogue. Al-Muallem asserted that we in Syria thank the Russian friends for the Moscow meeting, emphasizing that the West failed to do what Russia has accomplished, affirming that we are determined to continue this effort until we reach a Syrian dialogue in Damascus. Al-Muallem pointed out that de Mistura's initiative focused on Aleppo city and not on Aleppo's countryside, and it received our welcome out of willingness to achieve an agreement that would realize the unity and stability of Aleppo. For his part, the Foreign Minister of Belarus, Vladimir McKay, said in a press conference that Belarus supports Syria and calls on the international community to work on fighting terrorism and solving the crisis in Syria in a peaceful way. He added that Belarus is confident that Syria would come out of its crisis as a stronger state with high hopes for bilateral cooperation. He asserted that Belarus is fully ready to help and contribute in developing the economic capabilities of Syria, and that the bilateral agreements that were signed today will expand unilateral communication between the two countries. He said that Belarus opposes any foreign intervention in the internal affairs of any country. He further added that the Syrian government is on the front row in fighting all kinds of terrorism. Earlier, Foreign Minister Al-Muallem met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Belarus, Vladimir McKay, and the accompanying delegation. Al-Muallem affirmed that the events have proved that terrorism has no limits and that it poses a threat to the international peace and security, underlining the need to force the countries that support terrorism to comply with the international relevant resolutions and stop all forms of support to terrorist organizations. McKay, for his part, affirmed his country's support to Syria, highly appreciating the policy adopted by Syria to come out of the crisis. Syrian Arab army units have targeted the terrorist gatherings in Al-Rafid village and in the eastern side of Ain al-Tina village in Qunaitra province, killing scores of them. A military source has said that other army units killed dozens of terrorists in Al-Mas'ada, Al-Dubiya and south of Rahum in Hom's eastern countryside. 126 wanted persons from Homs turned themselves into the competent authorities to have their cases settled. On January 31st, hundreds of gunmen who were involved in the current events turned themselves into authorities in Idlib, Hama, Homs, and Aleppo to settle their files. Erdogan regime's police detained 21 policemen on suspicion of involvement in what is called illegal bugging on the calls of officials. The measure has been taken in retaliation to unveiling corruption scandals that were perpetrated by the head of the Turkish regime and other close figures. It is worth mentioning that such detention is the 9th of its kind since last July. The youth charity held several activities with the help of volunteers to provide services to the displaced families in Dummar area.
The youth charity in the past years witnessed several achievements and activities by the help with all its volunteers. We can see this clearly through the services on the needed and emergency families in Dummar arena that supply them with food and medical materials in addition to reviving their spirit.
Our charity stands through its departments by offering services to displaced citizens who were forced to leave their homes and sorting them according to their needs. Orphans and Special Needs Department and the charity's medical center that open day and night through polyclinics departments, emergency department and the dialysis department which make free services for citizens. On the other hand, the charity carried out new contracts in 2015 hoping to be a development year offer opportunities to the capable of working families.
I treat people daily with appointments taken by advance for all the conditions. The medicines are free to all patients and the fees are almost free. And thank God we are capable to give all the needed services in these awful circumstances.
The charity had been recorded 1,145 new orders this year for the displaced families by Emergency and Citizen Service Department. It also appointed departments specialized in orphan caring and want to supply the families with medical and educational aid. As the charity distributes every 2 months for each family food cartons containing 5 kg sugar, 12 paint tin, 6 liters of oil, 15 kg rice, 7 km lentils, and more. This meal is enough for a family of 5 people. At first, the youth charity founded in 2005 to help poor people. But after Syria war, their attention were toward the displaced and poor people together.
With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Serena, but after a short break.